Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Thursday, June the 28th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second daily dose of happy for the day. And we're 4/5 of the way now through the work week, and people are celebrating the fact that we're in summertime and the weekend is coming closer, and the weather is beautiful for the most part in many areas of the country anyway. Maybe not all areas of the country, but in many areas of the country it's really nice. And, you know, life is good. Life continues to enrich and make us feel great, and we keep celebrating it. So thank you for joining us on the program, and thank you for tuning in. And Wendy, hi. How you doing?
Yes. Hi, I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, it's been a good day. I mean, there have been continuing challenges. They seem to happen. And that tells me there's something I'm attracting there. I haven't quite figured out exactly what that is.
So tell me what the good part is in having challenges today.
Well, the good part this is like the ongoing thing in June for me. And I have to admit, I've admitted this before. I set up my little challenge in a way that was not to my best benefit, but I set it up so that I kept getting challenges and getting things to try, practicing, staying focused on what I wanted to stay focused on, and staying in a high flying place and a really good feeling place. And no matter what came along, try to get myself to get there. And I've had one opportunity after another to do that. So that's the good news. I mean, I got exactly what I asked for in that sense.
Well, and tell us what the benefit is of having challenges.
Well, you get stronger, you get better, you develop the skill. That's what I've been doing. I've been developing the skill,
okay.
And I've had.
And from an LOA perspective, what happens when there's a undesired moment? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where you're going with this, so I'm not quite sure how to answer. But
because every single moment of an unpleasant thought, you're actually sending out a bold request for what you prefer. And so you're intensifying your preferences.
Yeah, ideally. Yeah, that's right. I can't say practically that's always what I do, but that's certainly what I aim for.
No.
That's what I try to do.
The point is that's always what's happening. Doesn't mean you have evidence of it yet. Doesn't mean you've experienced it yet. Doesn't even mean you've connected with the truth of it yet. But it always happens. Every negative thing that we experience always sends off a rocket of desire of what we prefer. And so your inner being is like, got it, Walt. You had a challenge today. I got the opposite of it. Got it. It's ready for you.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and that is true. Yeah, I mean, the challenge for us isn't so much whether or not the rocket of desire went off, because it did. The challenge is, can we feel good about it? Can we feel like we're in a good place about it?
Well, and can you pivot your attention to the awareness that even if you don't see the evidence of what you prefer, you've actually added more preference into your quiver.
Yeah, sure. That's true.
I mean, that's how you become a master creator and utilizing step 5, because step 4 and 5 is where you are aware that everything unpleasant is actually creating something better for you. And step 5 is you don't beat yourself up for doing it.
Okay, it's a little different from the way we discussed step 4 and 5 last time, but I see your point, and I think there's validity to that.
Well, step 4 is you get into something unpleasant, but you're aware that it's for your benefit.
Okay.
And it is. It's always for your benefit. And step 5 is really simple. You just don't beat yourself up for being back in a step 1 moment.
Okay. I still say we discussed it a little differently, but what you're saying seems valid, so I'm okay.
Well, I'll tell you, Abraham has discussed it so many different ways. It's probably no wonder that I'm doing the same.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Trying to keep up with Abraham can be a full-time job, I tell you.
I know. Okay, let me see. I think I even have those notes sitting right here.
I love it.
Okay, step 4, you're just getting really good at step 3, which is getting into the receptive mode.
Right.
Because it says we want to do it on purpose, and that's what step 4 is mastering getting into the receptive mode. So the way I said it is recognizing that you're back in a step 1 moment, but you've pivoted to seeing that there's a benefit in it for you.
Yeah,
when you're pivoting and looking at the benefit, you get into a receptive mode.
It's certainly compatible. There's no doubt about that. Yes, it's definitely compatible.
So, cool. Well, that takes me into kind of what I've been focusing on since last night and all day long. I've just been in this amazement at a new awareness that I think I've had in little bit pieces and parts, but I'm getting it on a deeper level, which
What
is...
do you mean?
Well, yesterday I was sharing how my friend and I were working on something together, and it just seemed like we were trying so many different things. She was doing it more from an action perspective, and I was doing it more from a, mental assertion,
Energetic
like,
kind of
hey,
thing,
this
yeah.
is what I want, and,
Right.
focusing on stuff. And it just seemed that things were not going in the direction we wanted. And then I said at the end of yesterday, I was saying that finally the night before, I could tell we turned a corner because she had some mega breakthroughs. I knew lots of resistance was released.
Right. I remember. Yeah.
And as of yesterday morning, she had a conversation with somebody, and that conversation turned into a possible solution.
Which is good.
And during the show yesterday, I said, she's out checking on that. We'll see what happens. Well, when she came home, it was like, yeah, this is happening. And it was kind of like what we had been hoping for in the most wonderful possible way.
Ooh.
And
I suppose you can give us like even a taste of what it might be.
Say that again?
Well, we always like to hear good news, right? And you're getting some good news here, but we really don't know what it is. And I'm wondering, can you give us a taste of what that good news is?
No.
No. Then that's the way it is.
I'm not going to share the what it is, but I want to share the what's going on with it, because here's the thing that I recognize today. We were looking for this big resolution to a problem. And it came. And then it was, you like to ask me, so how does it feel now? And it's like normal.
Yeah, right.
It feels normal. It's not that it was a anticlimactic thing. It was just, we've been working so hard towards it. Wow, now it's here. We got the solution. And there was something in me that said, there's something new here for me to learn and understand. And here's what I've been kind of dwelling on for the last, 15, 18 hours. Which is, I think from what I will call a human perspective, certainly me, I have thought that when you try something, you do something, you get a response, either you like it or you don't. And in this case, many things were tried, and many of the responses were things we didn't like, and a handful of them were things that appeared hopeful, but we didn't know if it was going to land where we wanted it to land. And all of those things ended up not landing where we wanted it to land. However, every time we tried something new, when it didn't work, there was something else to try. It's kind of like the not getting the result we wanted sort of gave birth to, well, then let's try this.
Well, that's part for the course, though, isn't it? I mean, that's usually what happens. Usually something else comes along. We may not recognize it, perhaps, right out of the gate, but usually there's something that follows up. I mean, there's always some kind of a follow-up, isn't there?
Yes, and so when I get to the end of this, I'll let you know what my big epiphany was.
Oh, I see. So, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. My apologies.
That's okay. So we got a result, didn't like it. But the lack of results did give birth to a new idea. So then the new idea was tried. And then we got a result we didn't like. And then, well, what did we do now? It also gave rise or birth to a new idea. And we tried that, and the result was, it's a maybe. And so in the meantime, we're waiting. Oh, nope, bad result. Didn't get us what we wanted, which gave birth to yet another new idea. Now, this went on for like at least a month. And as much as I know that what I'm saying is like, duh, we go through this all the time, what I didn't realize was that now that we have the result that we were wanting, it came as a result of all these things that might have looked like failed attempts.
So they were all connected, basically.
They were all connected. And it was actually every one of those things that was attempted was a necessary component to get us to take an action. Then it didn't work, which caused us to think a new thought, which even then we took action and it didn't work, which caused us to think a new thought. And I truly believe that because law of attraction always operates on the path of least resistance, that even if we would have known the solution now, if we would have known it a month ago, I guarantee you both my friend and I would have gone, no, that's not going to work. It didn't make sense. It wouldn't have made sense, because actually what she had called this person about was not at all getting the solution. It was kind of like, here's a side note. Oh, by the way, I needed to call you because I need to talk about blah, 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 blah. And the friend said, well, what is it you're trying to accomplish? And so she opened up the bigger picture and she was like, oh, I have a solution for that. So it's like, if either one of us would have even thought about my friend calling this other person with what we needed, it wouldn't have even made sense to us. It just didn't logically make sense. And I realize I'm not giving you the specifics, so you don't really know what I'm going with.
Yeah, it's a little challenging.
I mean, if you just kind of follow the basic concept, the concept is, and this is the epiphany that I got out of this whole thing, how I have wasted so much time in my life feeling that the result, because it was not the result I wanted, was like a wasted attempt. What I got this time was it was actually a part of the solution. Like it was, let's just say there were 20 failed attempts. Every one of those failed attempts gave birth to the next one, which gave more information, and there started to become a greater level of clarity. And as the clarity started coming aboard, it's like we still didn't have the solution, but we were getting clearer on which direction we had to go to get the solution. And even though the phone call that she made yesterday landed on the solution, we would have never thought that in a million years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get what you're saying there. So, I mean, what you're really saying, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what it seems to add up to. Even though this path you were on seemed to take a long time and have a lot of stumbles along the way, because it was the path of least resistance, it was the way to get you there quickest. It may not have seemed quick, but it was the way to get you there quickest, and you got to the solution.
And yes, and I will say now I can look back at it in hindsight and say, because there was so much resistance on the trail, law of attraction was probably having a dickens of a time trying to find the path of least resistance to get us to where we wanted to go.
Which shows that the path of least resistance usually includes a large amount of resistance from us. We're the ones providing the resistance.
Well, yes, and the thing that makes it, okay, now here's another really keen point that I want to make. Because our inner being knows where all of our resistant stumbling blocks are, they will help law of attraction go around our resistance to where there is no resistance. But when you look at it at the end, like where I'm looking at it now, it was the most convoluted, detoured path you could have ever constructed.
Yeah, like my usual way of saying that is no Hollywood scriptwriter could have come up with that script.
No. And if you were to look at it today and go, here's point A and here's point B, and today we could go, well, here's the straight line to get there. Like, why didn't our inner being just say, hey, make this phone call? Because there was so much resistance that I'll bet inner being was saying, make this phone call, and the resistance allowed us not to hear.
Yeah, that's the theme that seems to crop up often as you and I and the others talk about this stuff, which is because we are in many ways such resistant beings, and we're resistant not because we're malicious or we don't love ourselves or we don't like ourselves or we're just being nasty or whatever, just because we have limiting beliefs. We have created them along the way. We have taught each other these limiting beliefs. We're very, very good at them. So because we have all these limiting beliefs, it looks like, from what I'm seeing, from the stories that I'm hearing from others, the universe tries to deliver the same thing in multiple ways just to make sure one of them gets through. And like you said, whichever one has the path of least resistance is the one that gets through. And it it's almost like they have a backup plan and then a backup plan behind the backup plan, so that one way or another they're going to get the answer to you. Because
I've heard Abraham say that there could be anywhere between 80 to 100 different ways to get you to where you want to go.
Wow. Yeah.
So if you and so like somebody says, but what if I miss one? My inner being says turn left. Don't worry, there's another left on the way.
Right.
You might have to turn left 3 times to get back to where you needed to go, but it's kind of like just keep going. And if you miss one, there'll be another one. If you miss that one, there'll be another one. If you miss that, there'll be another one.
It reminds me of a story of where Cindy was talking about one time about, I think it may have been the owl story. I'm not sure exactly which story it was, but she wanted to manifest something. It manifested, and then it manifested again, and then it manifested again, and her reaction was like, the universe was determined that I was going to see at least one of them.
Well, and if momentum is underway because there's been a lot of motion, you're going to keep seeing them.
Well, yeah.
I mean, after you buy a new car, or while you're thinking about buying a red Ford Taurus, and you're thinking about it, you start to see more of them on the road. By the way, I don't think there are red Ford Tauruses, so I really made up something that doesn't exist. Let's call it
watch out, it's going to show up, though. I guarantee somebody's going to paint their Taurus red for you.
Let's say a blue Ford Taurus, because I've had a couple of those. So once you're thinking about it, you look at it, at the dealership, you come home and you think about it, you dream about it. Then you're on the road in your old car and you just see lots of blue Ford Tauruses. And then you buy it and you see more Ford Tauruses. And now you're driving your Ford Taurus and you stop thinking about them and stop focusing on it because you already have the new car and you're not thinking about it anymore. And all of a sudden it's like, gosh, I hardly ever see blue Ford Tauruses anymore.
Yeah.
But for a while you do,
mm-hmm.
because you're still focused on it. So if Cindy was seeing something like she got what she needed and then she saw it again and she saw it again, it's because her focus was still there.
That's a valid point.
And law of attraction has momentum, and it keeps it going until you remove your focus.
One of the topics that I was talking about with, I think it was with Cindy, actually. Not sure. But the topic was how when we are focused on the now, not only are we focused on the now, in effect, we're also focusing on what's coming next. And what we're experiencing right now is what we focused on before. So when you were
That's
focusing,
what we talked about yesterday with segment intending.
Was that you and me? Okay, I wasn't sure who I was talking about it with. Well, that concept means that we're producing, in a sense, we're producing twice the result. we're focusing on it for now, but we're also focusing on it for tomorrow. We're getting both.
True.
So
so if we put our efforting, or not even effort, but if we put our attention on something for a long enough period of time that that law of attraction is able to get a hold of it, it's now in a state of momentum. And it doesn't require you to have the next thought because law of attraction will take care of the next thought. And then when the next thought is brought to you, if you put your attention on it, law of attraction will bring you another thought. And if you put your attention on that, law of attraction will bring you another one.
And so on and so forth.
And exactly. Now, it's possible that law of attraction can bring something to you. And let's say it's something you don't like, and you can choose to not put your attention on it. You purposely divert your attention and put it somewhere else. That's how you can actually start to slow down the momentum.
And that's really because, similar to the concept of physical momentum. Physical momentum, if you want to slow physical momentum, you apply a force in the opposite direction. And while focusing on another thought isn't necessarily the opposite direction, it kind of has the same kind of effect. If from a physics point of view, if you had momentum going in direction X, and you have direction Y that kind of goes cross current to you, like at a right angle to you, what it'll do is it'll change your momentum and turn it into a curve, so to speak. Well, isn't that terribly close to what happens with law of attraction momentum? First of all, life throws you lots of curves, and second of all, it's not like it's always a straight path. It's always a winding path, and the winding path is based on what we're thinking about, what we're focused on, and that focus changes, and we have interests, and the interests shift, and There's a whole lot of stuff coming out of us. It isn't just one thing. It's not like we spend our entire day saying, I want a new car. And that's all we do. It's not the whole day, we're doing all this other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know anybody who can literally stay focused on one thing consistently all day long, because we have lives to live.
That's right. Yeah.
Things have to be done. And so even if we say, oh, I focused on it all day, chances are you didn't really focus
Not
on
really,
it
no.
all day. Because while you're having a conversation with, a coworker or a phone solicitor or anybody else, at least temporarily, you're probably not focusing on whatever that thing was. You've diverted your attention and now you're engaged in a phone call with somebody else. Now you might go back and focus on it again when you get off the call.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which I do. I mean, I think you do too. We go back to stuff. We especially if it's stuff that we're practicing with, that we're, deliberately trying to focus on because we like it. We want it. We want more of it. We're entranced by it.
Well, I was listening to an Abraham today while I was at work, and they said something about, developing a practice and really being consistent with your focus. And I thought about that and I went, I don't know that I have been a really good, up until now, how I got to now is almost like I didn't get to now being a really awesome deliberate creator. Sometimes I fell into being a deliberate creator. Now, that might sound strange, but I was asking these questions of myself today. And I went, how did I land where I am now? And what came to me, and because now this had been a very powerful focus that I learned from Tony Robbins back in the mid-90s, which is your environment is so powerful in terms of how you set your thoughts, that I think I worked really hard on setting my environment. So what does that mean? I made certain that I was talking to people that supported what I was talking about. And if they weren't, they didn't stay my friends long, or they weren't coworkers or people that I hung around with very much. And I did my best to exit those conversations as quickly as possible. I made the choice to stop watching the news. And I purposely started watching television shows and movies that either made me laugh or caused me to think deep thoughts or really engage my mind in a positive way. I've listened to Abraham tapes and CDs and YouTubes over and over and over and over. And I've listened to other high performance, powerful, successful business people. And I've listened to what they have to say over and over and over. And I realized that because I've been doing that since the mid-90s, okay, so I have over 20 years of really setting an environment frame around me that really supports me. I mean, I have some family members that we don't agree on many subjects. And honestly, we don't communicate that often. I love them dearly, but we're not matching. And I'm okay. If we're not a match, we don't connect. I don't have friends any longer that cause me frustration. The friends that I have, I so love and enjoy, and they support me and I support them, and our conversation is always uplifting. And I realized this is how, and this might sound weird, how I kind of scathed or slipped under the radar of being a deliberate focuser and a deliberate creator, because my default setting was positive. Does that make sense?
Well, kind of. I guess I don't really see why it is that if you let's assume something that isn't true, but it makes it a little bit easier to handle what's going on mentally speaking. Let's assume that you are 100% positive all the time. Okay. If you were 100% positive all the time, in what sense would we be able to say that you weren't really deliberately creating? Because that's the part I'm kind of stumbling on.
Oh, because to me, deliberate creation is when I make a decision to focus on something purposefully and deliberately. Versus if I wake up in the morning and I put on Tony Robbins, I mean, like for a long time, I'd put on what I call the Tony Robbins power music. Because if you go to one of his seminars, he has kind of this rolling list of music that he plays.
Okay.
And I hung out with some people where somebody like had almost all the CDs where these major songs were, and they put it together as a mixed tape.
Oh, of course.
And
Yeah.
I probably played that tape for 2 years every morning when I woke up.
Wow.
And it put me back into the state of feeling empowered and excited and positive. And then I would turn on, one of Tony's programs, and I'd listen to that. Then I'd get in the car and I'd listen to some more. And I mean, I was like just bombarding my thoughts with positive messages. Now, it was deliberate that I was doing that, but the specific thoughts I was thinking was kind of by default.
So the distinction seems to be that while you were in a great feeling place, you weren't focusing during that on particularly what you wanted. It was just feel good.
Exactly. I just felt good. And so I was feeling good a lot, but then I would wonder how come certain goals in my life weren't happening. Because I wasn't focusing on them. Did I feel good a lot of the time? Yes. But I wasn't being a deliberate creator of specific things.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the distinction I'm trying to bring out. And that's why when you and I started doing this podcast together, and I said, I want to create something on purpose. I want to be a deliberate creator. Maybe even back then you didn't realize to what distinction I was really saying, I want to be a deliberate creator.
Well, probably not. I mean, we barely knew each other, first of all. We just met,
But it's like, I knew a lot of powerful stuff. A lot of it was in my head, on my mental shelf. And yes, I had some really awesome experiences of manifesting things when I didn't even know law of attraction. But it was use my perseverance method, as well as I did have some very empowering beliefs in place. But it didn't mean that I was necessarily utilizing the principles of law of attraction in the way I am now to be a deliberate creator. Because the things that were really, really important to me were still not created.
Yeah. So I mean, basically what you were doing is about the time when we met and first started doing the podcast, when you said you were practicing, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but you wanted to be more of a deliberate creator. What you were really saying is, I'm going to really practice focusing on what I want.
Yeah. Exactly. And I did not realize, to the extent that I'm realizing literally today, how because I had done such a good job in surrounding myself in such a wonderfully powerful, positive environment, that's what kept me feeling good. But there was an illusion that I didn't realize until now, that I was being a deliberate creator, because I really wasn't. I was being a default creator inside of this really good feeling environment.
Yeah, I can identify with that. I mean, I think that's to a large extent what I have been working on doing, just exactly that. Being in a good feeling state without trying to focus on particular stuff. And for me, I don't know what your reasoning was. For me, my reason was I just needed to have the experience of being in a good feeling state a lot of the time. Because I knew if I didn't have that, I wasn't sure how I could actually bring in the emotional content I needed to focus on what I want and expect to get it. So I had to develop the feel-good skill first, and so that's what I've been doing.
Well, and I knew I wanted to feel better and improved, and I definitely did that. And so the things of creating, a positive environment for myself and filling my mind with empowering thoughts, that did tremendous things for me.
Sure.
But I think I was under the misconception that by doing that, I was deliberately creating as well.
Really? You actually missed that? I would be surprised to hear that you missed that one, to be honest.
I don't think I realized it.
Because you're really pretty sharp on this kind of thing. So that's just like, wow, oh my goodness.
Well, and I think I've been becoming more deliberate, like in small things. But I'm going after the big stuff in my life now.
You sure are. Yeah, that's for sure. Anybody who's been listening knows that.
I'm going after, like, I'm a deliberate creator and I can create anything I want. So it's kind of like I created the foundation of how to do it, what to do, in what sequence to do it in, and in what environment to do it in. I did all the book work up front. And now I'm ready to go, boom.
Time for the lab work, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so what I'm sharing with you right now, for me, feels like not only like a huge, whoa, wow, I didn't realize this before. But this is now, it's like impacted me on such a big level that I want to tell every client I have, build a positive environment. It's so freaking important.
Yeah, right.
Because
It
what
is.
it did for me was it got me into feeling good. It changed my set point where, I went from being frustrated and disappointed most every day of my life
Mm.
to feeling happy and cheerful most every day of my life. And that was without deliberately deciding I wanted stuff. I was just feeling good.
Which is great.
And you and I both know that when you're in a state of feeling good, law of attraction can slip stuff right in because you're in an open, receptive mode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I guess in a way, that's where I'm saying I was receiving stuff all over the place. It was really cool,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but it didn't feel deliberate.
Right. Sure. Well, how could it?
It was like, yeah, I wanted that. Wow, look at that. It showed up. Cool. Of course, I was delighted. But the things that really, 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 really mattered to me were not showing up because I had so much resistance on those.
Mm.
And even being in a great environment and filling my head with really wonderful things was not shifting the resistance. That to me took deliberateness to shift.
Which is great, because that's what you're really saying here is not only did I recognize that I want to really create deliberately and with conscious focus and so forth, but in a sense you're ready to just dive in, and that's what you're doing. You're diving right in, like the water's great. Come on in, guys.
Yeah. And so for me, the place that I'm learning how to be truly a deliberate creator is from inside the space that I already know how to be happy.
Mm.
I already know how to feel good. I already know how to prioritize happiness over feeling like yuck. And lots of times when a new client comes to me, they don't have that foundation set.
Well, yeah.
And so they just want to be a deliberate creator. And what I find is sometimes I can understand now why it's a little bit harder to just jump right in. Hey, I want to create XYZ when there's been no foundation set, when their emotional set point goes up and down like a roller coaster, when they don't have a solid belief system that says, you know what, I know I'm supported by the universe. I know I'm cared for. I know I have an emotional guidance system that is always communicating to me 24/7, whether I'm listening or not.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
so, a person who doesn't even know how to identify their feelings, it's like, wow, there's a lot to teach somebody before they can really get into being a deliberate creator.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there is a lot.
But it certainly doesn't mean it can't happen. I mean, holy cow, I've watched you move and change and groove like nobody's business in the last 6 months.
And it's been fun. I mean, I have been enjoying it. I have been enjoying kind of learning how to reconnect to what I feel, who I am, and discovering that I like it. I like who I am. I'm actually pretty good.
Yay! Well, and yesterday we had talked about me connecting with Josh Flagg from $1 Million Listing New York in LinkedIn, and so I was kind of on a high with that. That just really jazzed me, and I started thinking about it. I'm going, well, you know what? Now that he and I are first connections, I would imagine, at least a dozen people that he would be first connections with, and I thought to myself, that means I'm now second connections with them.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I went, I wonder who I could reach out to. So I went on the computer and I just started looking for different celebrities and different people that he might know. And I was able to connect to a couple of them. They haven't responded yet, but the connect button was there and I sent him a personalized note. Then some people, they already have hit their 30,000 people connections, and so I just became followers of them.
Right.
But it was really fun because I spent, at least 6 hours, not just Googling, but after doing that, I just kept thinking about it. And I had this really wonderful feeling of being connected to affluent people, being connected to like celebrities both in New York and in LA, and just like, oh yeah, they're like my friends, they're my buds, this is cool. And I was thinking that kind of feeling, especially because I felt it for so long, I knew, I'm like, oh yeah, I put this out into the ethers. Like the law of attraction is so knowing that I want to connect with people, who are affluent. I want to connect with people who are influencers. And the reason I want to connect with people who are influencers is because I want them to connect with me so I can be an influence for them. So because they're already a natural influencer, they can expand their message of influence.
Okay.
Because
Sounds cool.
I want more people to know that they can feel good. I want more people to know that they can control their life in a way that they may have never even considered. They may have just thought, the whims of luck take over. And I want to let someone know it's beyond luck. You can make your own luck.
And I'm just realizing that there's also another side of this too. Not another side, another aspect, another piece of this. And what made me think of it is the fact you and I are first connections on LinkedIn, and so that means that all these connections you're making, I'm one step removed. I'm like a step closer to these same people, and I'm not doing anything. You're doing it all.
And you know what's funny, Walt? Every now and then I think about someone who reaches out to me and wants to be my connection, and they don't know me, but they, either they work with me or they have a connection that knows me or whatever, and I'm like, do I really want to give all of my wonderful connectedness to this person? Who are they? Will they use this power for good?
Oh, that's funny. That is funny.
Yes, I do think those thoughts, not from evil, but I want to know that they're going to use this in a way that, I want it to be used to expand who they are,
You almost sound like one of those character races from a science fiction movie, and it's a superior race, and the protagonists run into this superior race, and the superior race is saying, I wonder how much of our secrets we should share with you.
Well, maybe. But I do send positive thoughts when I make the connection, and I'll say, okay, use these powers for good. But yes, you're right. All of the first connections that I made are now your second connection.
Pretty cool. I've been talking about law of attraction. I'm attracting, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. And that's one of the cool things that happens in life.
Yeah.
And, for as much negative press as social media has had, I think there's much more positive, and even to the point of stuff we are so unaware of. But it's there.
It is.
It's like this is a very connected world. And I believe that social media has been an answer to feeling separate from one another, because it's definitely bringing us closer.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, because, social media has also gotten a lot of criticism, particularly regarding teenagers and how they're using social media connectedness in place of actual personal in-person connectedness. And, like the commercial, you got the 4 young adults in the same room, and they're on the couches, and they're all texting back and forth. And one looks up and says, maybe we're supposed to do this as like an actual conversation? And the others say, nah, and they go back to their texting.
Well, and I know that people think that there's something wrong with that. And I know that that's different than how I grew up. But I'm not willing to judge that as wrong, because to me, the jury's out. We don't know what that's going to, what that's going to become later.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's why I like your point so much, because your point was essentially that it doesn't really matter whether or not they are communicating in the first person in the quote real world unquote. When it comes to evaluating whether there's value to social media is still valuable regardless of whether they're doing that. It just has its own value. It's a valuable way of connecting and communicating.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I listen to even my sister, who's 10 years younger than me, she'll talk about how she's connected to different people on Facebook, and I'll say, oh, well, how do you know that person? She goes, oh, just through Facebook. But when she talks about this person, it's like she has known them in person. For an extensive period of time. And she's like, oh yeah, we communicate a lot. And I'm like, really? Now, I think that's pretty amazing, because my first communication language is verbal, and I have come to use texting and emailing and Facebooking for certain things, but I'm not inundated with it. If someone took my phone away for a week, I would be fine.
Mm.
You know, where I know other people are like, don't take my phone away, you know. But I mean, even my sister, only being 10 years younger than me, she connects to social media on a different level than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my nieces, you know, who are like 35, 40 years younger than me, they really connect to social media very differently.
Sure.
You know, and I remember, gosh, I don't know, it might have been 10 years ago, we had a Christmas at my house. And like my one niece, I swear to God, she never spoke for an entire evening. She never spoke. But she was so connected to not just her cell phone, she had her laptop up.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what are you doing? And she didn't speak. But her other sister, who's much more social, said, oh, yeah, she's talking to her friends in Germany. And I'm like, what? She goes, oh, yeah, she started taking German because she met these people online, and they speak German. So she decided to take German so she could speak with them. Like, wow.
That's pretty intense. Yeah.
To me, if somebody speaks in another language online, I'm like, oh, well, guess I can't talk to them.
Or why don't you speak English?
Yeah, or I'll just use the translating tool.
Yeah, right.
But no, my niece is like, oh, no, I want to reach out and learn. So I'll just learn their language. And it's interesting because she's very introverted.
Really?
So she was never inclined to be overly verbal with us or her family or anybody. She knows how to speak.
Fortunately.
But she just isn't a person who's really socially outward at all. So, you know, being able to meet people online and type her responses, I think was perfect for her. Because she has a whole world of socialization that I don't think she would have had if she didn't have the internet. She just would have been one of those people that you call shy or quiet or a wallflower.
It's an interesting thing, too, because I've also noticed among people who are online, even among young people, there are still a significant number of people who are shy offline, who are also shy online. And it's like whatever is, I don't know how to categorize it, so I'll kind of give up, but whatever it is that's causing them to be shy, whatever that influences or that series of influences are, well, that series seems to carry over to online for some people. So despite the fact that the new tool is there, they're barely using it. And I kind of wonder about that. What is it, I wonder? Why is it that some shy people, like you say, there are many who do just kind of open up online and they become, you know, this blossoming person online that they find they are not comfortable being offline. And others, it's like there's no real difference. Online, offline makes no difference.
Well, and some people use private messaging to keep themselves more enclosed if they want to stay much more private.
That's a good point.
You know, and if they are more shy, where I got to tell you, well, the first time somebody private messaged me, I'm like, what an annoyance. Now it's another tool I have to figure out and something else I have to go, what is this and how do I get it? And, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, because I was used to just replying in Facebook and everybody can see it. So, of course, I'm careful about what I say so that nothing can come back to haunt me. But then people started doing private messaging and I'm like, well, this is kind of nice because now you know you're just talking to one person. This feels more comfortable in certain cases, you know. But I still have my own personal thing, which is if you don't want anybody to know something about you, do not put it in print where it can never be copy and pasted, you know, none of that.
No,
so I have certain things that I'll talk only on the telephone. I don't even want to do it on the cell phone because I don't want phones recorded.
Well, and there's also something else too. I mean, we're kind of the older generation now, and among our generation, I know it's true
for yourself, Walt.
Well, I'm a little bit older generation than you are. How about that? But
yeah, like 2 years, whatever.
Okay. But the point is that those of us who are not among the millennial generation, let's put it that way, we have, I know it's true for me, I know it's for my wife, and I think it's for most people around our age. We have learned a certain distrust for written communication only, because we've learned, most of us have learned, I would think, that there's so much that gets lost in terms of like body language and mood and vibes that come across as you're talking to somebody. You don't always pick that up when you're reading a text message. And yet, even as I said that, and I was thinking this before I even brought this up, and yet it does seem, and this is the part I don't quite get yet, it does seem that there are millennials who communicate via text all the time. You never see their body language, or they never see each other's body language, and yet they seem to be picking it up anyway. And I'm not sure how that's happening. It's got to be through, inner being kind of connection stuff. It's got to be something like that. But amazingly, they seem to be able to do that to some level. And I don't quite understand how. I don't know if you have any insight about that, but I'm just amazed by it.
Well, I mean, it is very possible that they're picking up on the communication intuitively. But I would say that I have not seen any evidence or research or anything to indicate, even if they think they understand, if they really are.
Which raises an interesting question. Do they really understand what the other is really saying? And I don't know.
I don't know. Because I don't get inside of their communication.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I do believe that sometimes there's a lot to be desired from typed communication, especially if it's in text form with all sorts of, shortcuts and whatnot. And, oftentimes you can misspell something. And for me personally, and this is my own style, it has nothing to do with my age. It has to do with my style. I have such an exact type of understanding that's like, if somebody writes the word to, T-O, and they meant to say so, S-O, and I'm reading the sentence, I can get completely thrown.
Oh, yeah.
And go, what the heck are they trying to say? And I will tell you, being at the job that I'm at now, because people are just in such a hurry when they write, lots of typos happen. And spell check doesn't get it or catch it because it's really a grammar check, not a spelling error.
Which is interesting. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we talked toward the beginning of the program about challenges that I was dealing with, and what was the nature of all that and so forth. Well, one of the challenges I was dealing with today came exactly out of this issue, out of communication, written communication, where there isn't careful attention to how words are spelled and so forth, and it was leading to situations where the same message could have various interpretations of it. And it was actually messing things up in terms of communications within the company. So, I mean, you're right on point as far as my own experience was today.
Mm-hmm. And so, but you know what? I believe that that's an area that will probably always be a problem, if you will, or a challenge, because every single personality type handles that kind of thing differently. And even me, I mean, I'm really cautious. I usually reread things 3 times before that I hit send. But there are times I'm just in a hurry. And as far as I know, I'm like, okay, good enough, go. And, if one of those good enough go emails went out and I had 2 typos, I could be totally screwing up somebody else's world while they're reading it and going, what on earth is Wendy trying to say to me? So, and there are those, like I used to have a coworker, oh my gosh, incredibly intelligent man, highly respected in our company, and could not spell to save his life, and did not use spell check.
Didn't use spell check. Oh no.
And he was like from, like the deep South, and I'd read his stuff, and I swear it's like he wrote like hillbilly. But when he spoke, he sometimes spoke like a hillbilly, but he said intelligent things through hillbilly language. And I'm certainly not trying to diss, anybody who is from the deep South or hillbilly town. But he just didn't speak with great articulation. And I'd read his stuff and I just sometimes giggle because I'm like, I have no idea what he's saying. None whatsoever. But if I get on the phone with him, it's like I didn't realize how much he even talks the way he writes, because when we're talking on the phone, I'm asking for clarification and I'm getting it and we move on. So it's like it doesn't dawn on me sometimes when we're talking how much I have to ask for clarification. It's just a natural part of my communication style.
Well, as you're describing that, I'm kind of asking myself, so what would it be like to work in a corporate environment with Jeff Foxworthy, who talks about if such and such and such, you just might be a redneck. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
And I don't know what the answer
I grew up in Chicago, and I went through all of I graduated, when I was there. Where my little sister, she moved to Texas when she was like 8 or 9, and sometimes, other than the fact we have a family resemblance in our appearance, if you listen to the two of us as we speak, you would never think we were sisters. And I jokingly and yet semi not jokingly, she'll say a sentence and I'll go, ain't? Really? Ain't? And I've been working on that since she was 10 years old. She picked up the word ain't probably the first day she hit Texas, and it stuck.
And it ain't going away.
Now, yeah, exactly. And what's ironic is most people from Texas don't talk that way. I just think that the friends she happened to hang around with did.
Yeah.
But I'm like, ain't? She's like, yeah, that's how I talk, Wendy. I'm like, okay, love you anyway. I'm like, ain't? So there's just so much that goes on in our world. And, it's my desire to be nimble. It's my desire to be flexible. It's my desire not to judge someone else. I know I have my preferences, but it's my desire to be flexible when I'm in the environment of somebody who's not like me, and just kind of roll with the punches and let it be a happy experience, one where I can come out of it with joy or maybe some new understanding of a different kind of culture, even if it's from across the street. They may have a different culture for all I know.
But now you're also adding in a new factor, because what you just described was what's kind of involved in learning how to feel good all the time. But you're adding in the factor now of also being a deliberate creator while you're feeling good and making that a major new focus, if you will, in your life. So how does that, in your view, accentuate what you're just talking about there? You don't really worry about what somebody else is doing, and, to each his own and that kind of thing. But what's the influence on you when it comes to being a deliberate creator? How does that affect you?
I believe that, first of all, it makes my creations go with a greater level of flow.
No.
I believe path of least resistance can be achieved a whole lot quicker. I don't think I have to go on nearly as many detours, because when I'm not judgmental, there's less resistance in my path. When I'm willing to be curious about how somebody speaks differently than me, instead of being angry, frustrated, or just, I want to kill them because why can't they talk right? There's less resistance. And so I can hear somebody or receive their communication however they say it. So I think when I desire, greater flexibility and being nimble and not judgmental, it allows for the law of attraction to deliver things to me in a much more direct fashion, because the idea of path of least resistance is what's the most efficient possible way we can get something from point A to point B. Yeah. And like an airplane goes pretty much as the crow flies. However, if there's a giant wind pattern, they'll go out of their way to avoid it. Or if there's a giant thunderstorm, they'll go out of their way to avoid it.
Sure.
And that's what law of attraction does. Law of attraction goes out of its way to avoid where I'm going to have resistant things that won't allow something to move through to me.
Yeah, I think the example you used the other day was rocks in a river, and the water just kind of winds its way through the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so if the rock is directly in the path of where I want to go, water will just go around the rock.
Right.
But if you have a giant dam, because there's so many rocks in the water, well, now there's a little bit more effort in trying to get something to you if you want to get to the other side of the dam.
And interestingly enough, if you do have enough water there, that water becomes quite the force. So if there's like a break in the dam, you get a flooding action going on the other side.
And that's why Abraham says intensity of desire trumps resistance.
That's a nice segue. I like that. That's good. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. I've used that, it's like, I'm like, okay, well, if I have so much resistance going on and I can't seem to get what I want, then I'll just use my pre-law of attraction method. I'll just use a lot of force and effort. I know how to do that. But I'll tell you, it takes a lot out of me, and I don't want to do that one anymore. So I'm really at the point in my life, I'm happy to figure out how to remove my own boulders from the pathway so I can make it as simple as possible for stuff to get to me.
Well,
that's kind of my intention.
I'm happy to report that your Staples Easy button is going to arrive any day now.
Who's not to say I don't already have one?
Oh, no. I sent you one you already have. You're going to have two?
I'll have two.
One for each hand?
That's even better. One for my left hand, one for my right hand.
What have I done? What have I done? I've unleashed a monster. Oh, no.
Oh, this monster was already out in the open.
Oh, good. All right. Well, then I feel better. Well, we've got just a few minutes left. I want to say,
we've gone all over the place today, which is kind of fun.
Oh yeah, before we and we only have a few minutes left, and I want to give you a last word, but I want to make sure we get in. If you are not yet a subscriber, I mean, you can tell what kind of discussions we have, and they're great, and they're fun, and they're exciting. They make you laugh. Take advantage. Become a subscriber. It's free. Go to the homepage, loatoday.net. The instructions are there. It takes a minute. It's free. It's easy. And when you're done, you got a flow of podcasts coming your way. And then all you have to do is just decide what you're going to deliberately create with them. But start with that. And you're off to the races. Just want to make sure I got that in there. Go ahead. You can finish up.
Well, and I was just going to say, with 11 shows a week that you do, it's like if somebody is brand new and they really want to fill themselves with a positive environment and lots of good stuff to think about, just start binge listening to our show.
People do that,
We
too.
will keep you occupied for a really, really long time.
Oh, yeah.
And if you come from the place of the environment that you live in or the job that you work in, where everybody's negative and they're not speaking anything positive into your life, put your headset on or your earphones and binge listen to loatoday.net. And I promise you, you will receive new ideas to think about. You'll receive some new powerful ways to consider how to live a life of joy. And eventually, if not sooner, and it will be sooner, if you start binge listening and just listening to other things that really put you in a good mind space, your life will turn around. It can't not turn around when you are continually focused on positive things.
And don't be surprised if some of your coworkers in about 6 months say, "Charlie, you seem different." I don't know why, but it's like you're happier or something. Like, is there something wrong at home?
I was talking to someone recently, and they had only changed some habits maybe 6 weeks ago. And they were already having people go, "Gosh, you're so different. Tell me what's up."
That's nice.
It doesn't take much.
Yeah,
it doesn't take much for you to change your life.
Speaking of which,
but you gotta want it.
Well, you do. And speaking of which, if somebody does want it and they want it so much they actually want a little private tutelage, how do they reach out to you?
They can reach me through my website at wendydillard.com. And it's actually not through my website, but if you go to my website, you'll find my phone number and my email address and just reach out to me using one of those methods. And I'll get back to you really fast. Actually,
with smartphones, with smartphones, they can click on a phone number even if you haven't turned it into a clickable phone number. So in that sense, they actually can do it through the website. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, so there is a way that they can do it through the website. But yeah, I take your point. It's perfectly valid. Anyway, this has been great. I look forward to doing it again tomorrow. And I just want to say one last thing to anyone who has been listening and hasn't subscribed yet. What are you waiting for? That's it. Okay, I'm done. Wendy, it's been great. We'll talk again tomorrow.
All right, you got it.
And we'll see you all as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.